Everyone, welcome to all 4 C learning classes, third chapter body fluids and circulation. Now we'll go for the topic that is blood vessels. What do you mean by a blood vessel? Arteries and veins are said to be the blood vessels. Generally, the arteries and veins are the blood vessels which carry the blood to different parts of the body and also collect the blood from different parts of the body back into the heart. So we have a network. In what way? Now we'll see. Look at here. For suppose this is an artery. An artery is what with the arterioles and is also with the capillaries. This is the network of the blood vessels. Look at here. This is the network of the blood vessels. In the same manner, the blood vessels are with the this is all what the blood vessels. Arteries, arterioles, and the capillaries. Here, the capillaries and the venules and the veins. So this is already we are familiar with the closed type of circulatory system where blood flow through only what is said to be the blood vessels. That is a closed type of circulatory system. In the case of the open type of circulatory system, the heart is present blood vessels, but blood vessels opens into the body cavities as a sinuses, where blood come out of the blood vessels and it is filled in the different parts, such as they are the part of the open system named to be the sinuses. In cockroach, we discussed the perivisceral, perineural, pericardial sinuses. But here, in the case of the earthworm and human beings, the blood flow through only certain blood vessels. It does not come out, and we have seen the differences between the closed and open type of circulatory system. So, arteries and veins are what said to be the blood vessels. Arteries can be termed as arteries are with in a decreasing diameter and in the tissues, whereas veins are in an increasing diameter start in the tissues. Look at here. Arteries, arterioles and capillaries. If you look at from here to here, their diameter decreased. And look at here. The veins which start with the increasing diameter, that is capillaries, venules and veins. So arteries ends in tissues, whereas veins start with the tissues. Arteries are in a decreased diameter, ends in the tissues. Veins start with the tissues in a increasing diameter. Generally, the arteries are, the definition of the arteries is not that people have the wrong idea of arteries are the blood vessel that carries the oxygenated blood only. Wrong. If that is the true, the pulmonary aortic arch, where the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 mmHg, where the partial pressure of carbon dioxide 45, and systemic artery, that is the aorta, which have the different branches, where the partial pressure of oxygen is PO2 is 95 mmHg, whereas PCO2 is 40 mmHg. What does it indicate? It indicates that the blood in the blood vessels, all the gases are present, but the pressure what varies. So it is not that you define an artery and vein based on carrying the oxygenated or the deoxygenated blood as a definition. Then how to define? An artery is arteries are the blood vessel that take the blood to the tissues or what's it to be the arteries. So as a second point you can say that is arteries carry more of the oxygenated blood. Veins are the blood vessel which start in the tissues and take the blood to the heart. So the definition of an artery, the blood vessel that carry the blood from heart to the tissues is an artery. The veins are the blood vessel that take the blood to the heart is named to be the blood vessel which take the blood from tissues to the heart is named to be the veins. This is how we see the arteries and the veins. Arteries are progressively in a decreasing diameter into the tissues. Veins in a increasing diameter from tissues is what the arteries and veins. Generally, the arteries and veins, if we discuss, they are with the following diagrammatically we can discuss the condition of the arteries and the veins. An artery, look at here. This is with the three layers are present in the wall of an artery and veins. Look at here. That is the artery and veins, if we observe, it is with the tunica interna, tunica externa, tunica media. Look at here. This is a TE stands for tunica externa, TM tunica media, TI tunica interna. So the wall of the blood vessels are with the tunica externa, which is also named to be the tunica adventitia, tunica externa, tunica media, tunica interna, tunica interna. These are the three layers of the wall of the blood vessels called artery and vein. Tunica externa, tunica adventitia, which is made up of the connective tissue fibers. It is made up of connective tissue fibers, that is collagen and elastic fibers are present in the tunica externa. Tunica media is with the elastic membrane, that is elastic fibers are present. Beside that, it is with the smooth muscle. It is with the elastic lamina and also with the smooth muscles. It is with the smooth muscles. Tunica interna is with the simple squamous. It is with the simple squamous epithelial cells. That's what the simple squamous in the internal walls of the blood vessel, we term it as endothelium. Endothelium. Recall your memory. That is a simple squamous epithelium is an epithelium which is present in the Bowman's capsule, alveoli of lungs, and the inner walls of the blood vessel where it is named to be the endothelium. So the case with the arteries and veins, this is the tunica interna, which is made up of simple squamous epithelial cells. Then this is with tunica media with the muscles, smooth muscles and smooth muscles, whereas tunica externa consists of the fibers, connective tissue fibers, collagen fibers, connective tissue. So this is how we see the case with the blood vessels. In this connection, tunica media is with the two elastic lamina. In the case of an artery, look at here. The artery is with two elastic lamina, whereas the tunica, the case with the vena, only one elastic lamina in the tunica media. This is how we show the difference. We observe the difference in the case of the artery and the vein. As artery is with the tunica media with the two elastic lamina, it is with more thick walls. Generally, the muscle layer in the case of the artery, which is very thick in the case of the artery, that's the reason why the arteries are with the thick walls than do the veins. Veins are with the thin walls. Apart from that, one point to remember, the tunica interna, which is made up of simple squamous epithelial cells, the flattened cells, the simple squamous in the blood vessels is named to be the endothelium. Generally, this endothelium of the veins is the simple squamous cells are folded to form the valves. That is, diagrammatically you can see that the case with the veins where you find the valves. This is what you find. These are the valves. Valves are seen in the case of the veins. Veins are valvular, but arteries are not valvular. Why? The simple squamous epithelium of the veins, where the endothelium, which is referred as endothelium, the simple squamous epithelial cells are folded to form valves, V-A-L-V-E. That's the reason why in veins the backward flow of the blood is prevented, whereas arteries are without the valves. So, artery is a blood vessel which carries the blood from heart to different parts, whereas veins are the blood vessel which carry the blood from different parts into the heart, is what we see the arteries and the veins. The arteries are with progressively decreasing diameter in the tissues, to which the continuously the capillaries, which means arteries ends in a capillaries, whereas veins start with the blood capillaries. This is what we see. Comparatively, that is, these are all what the tissues, these are all what we treated as the tissues. Generally, the blood vessels open at the tissues itself. Is it right or not? Thereby, the exchange of the nutrients and the gases takes place. Arteries at the tissues, the ends in a capillary. Recall your memory. That is, as the progressively the diameter decreases at the tissues, with respect to the arteries, there the hydrostatic pressure increases. This is a positive pressure which causes the filtration, and this results in the diffusion of the water along with the nutrients, and oxygen diffuses into the extracellular fluid. Recall your memory, we have discussed it. Then only the larger proteins do not diffuse, which are what enter into the capillaries of the veins. But the capillaries of the veins, when the larger proteins enter, which creates the colloidal pressure. This colloidal pressure draws the 85% of the ECF back into the capillaries of the veins. This is how the exchange of the gases and the diffusion takes place at the tissues via the arteries and the veins. It's not that the blood is delivered to the tissues. From the blood, through the capillaries, the exchange of the nutrients, gases, waste material, that is arteries, from where the fluid containing the nutrients and gases are transported into the tissues. And due to the negative pressure that is generated in the colloidal pressure in the capillaries of the vein, 85% of what draw back into the veins through the capillaries. Why not taking place here at the arteries? The question is the point to raise. Generally, the arteries and the veins are what with the three walls. Is it right? Tunica externa, tunica media and tunica interna. Tunica interna is with the simple squamous. Unlike the arteries and vein, capillaries are with only endothelium, that is the simple squamous. As it is very thin, with only simple squamous, so possibility of the diffusion of exchange of material will be more. This is what we see. Unlike the arteries, exchange of the material gases takes place at the capillaries, not in the arteries and veins. What could be the reason? The reason is nothing but the capillaries are with only thin walls made up of simple squamous, unlike the arteries and veins, which are made up of both connective tissue, muscular layer and endothelium, simple squamous, which means comparative to that of the arteries, vein with that of the capillaries. Capillaries are thin walls with only simple squamous and lack the connective tissue as well as the muscular layer. As they are very thin, the diffusion of the substances is taking place abundantly, or more amount of the nutrients and gases takes place. This is the prime reason we see. So, by this you come to know arteries are the blood vessels. Similarity between the arteries and veins are both are with the tunica externa, tunica media and tunica interna. And now we'll see the differences between these two. Recall the arteries and the veins differences. Now we'll see arteries and the veins. The case with arteries and veins, the differences, if we go to the discussion, arteries are the blood vessels that carry the blood from heart to different parts, different parts of the body. Whereas veins collect the blood from different parts to the heart. This is the first difference we see. Next, arteries are with thick walls. We see thick walls, whereas veins are with thin walls. How do we say that? Look at here the diagrammatically. The muscular layer in the case of the arteries is very thick, whereas here it is thin. This is the reason why the walls of the arteries are with thick, whereas here thin walls. Next, apart from that, all arteries are carrying the oxygenated blood, except all arteries carries O2 blood except the pulmonary trunk or pulmonary artery. pulmonary artery. This is the point to remember. All the arteries are carrying oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. All veins carry deoxygenated blood, except pulmonary veins. So all arteries are carrying the O2 blood except the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery is a branch of pulmonary trunk. Pulmonary trunk originated the right ventricle. There are two aortic arches, recall your memory. Pulmonary aortic arch and left systemic. So the pulmonary artery, which is the pumping the blood from right ventricle to the lungs. What blood is needed to the lungs for purification, which means it is carrying the deoxygenated. So all arteries are carrying oxygenated blood, but pulmonary artery deoxygenated blood. In the same way, all veins are carrying, that is superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. Superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. In this connection, we see the systemic veins, internal jugular, external jugular vein, renal vein, spermatic vein, all are what carrying the deoxygenated blood. But the case with the pulmonary vein, which starts in the lungs and open into the left atrium, that carries the oxygenated blood. So this is an exemption. Next, one more point to remember. The arteries are, the lumen of the artery is a narrow. Look at here. The lumen is a narrow lumen. But here lumen in the sense the cavity. The cavity of the artery is narrow. Lumen is narrow, whereas the lumen is wide. We say lumen is narrow, lumen is wide. When the lumen is narrow, what is the flow of the blood? Wavy flow of the blood, wavy flow with jerks, whereas here continuous flow of the blood, continuous blood flow. Next, even we see the case with the arteries. Arteries are deeply seated in the sense they are present at the inner parts, whereas veins are superficially placed. Superficially means they are peripherally present. They are present at the peripheral means uppermost. Whatever the blood vessels you see, the blood that comes out is nothing but the peripheral. Means peripherally located blood vessels are nothing but the veins. Veins are present at the uppermost layers of the body, whereas the deeply seated is arteries. Next, the arteries are with the two elastic lamina. They are with the two elastic lamina, whereas the veins are with one elastic lamina. Look at here, these are the two elastic lamina we find in the case of the artery. One elastic lamina. And look at here this diagram. Arteries ends in capillaries, that is the point also see. Arteries ends in capillaries, whereas veins start with the capillaries. Arteries are progressively decrease in diameter. Veins are progressively increase in diameter. These are what the differences we see in the case of the arteries and veins. I repeat, the summary of the blood vessels we see as blood vessels are the one that take the nutrients from the heart to, that is from heart to different parts they pump, and from different parts they collect the blood to the heart. So an artery is what with the pumping the blood to different parts from the heart. Veins collect the blood from different parts to the heart. If you observe the blood vessels called the arteries and veins, structurally the wall of the artery is and the veins are with tunica externa, tunica media, tunica interna. Tunica externa is with the connective tissue fibers, both the elastic and collagen fibers, and generally connective tissue made in the sense it is with the fibers. The fibers are elastic and collagen fibers. In the case of the artery, the collagen and elastic are present, whereas in the veins the elastic fibers are absent. In the case of the tunica externa, tunica media is with the smooth muscles, tunica interna with the simple squamous. The tunica media with the smooth muscles, these are the one which are innervated by the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which causes the constriction and the dilation. Recall your memory, sympathetic neurons innervate the arteries and they cause the narrowing of the blood vessels by acting upon the smooth muscles. That increases the blood pressure and thereby the heartbeat. The parasympathetic dilates, and apart from that, the inner wall is simple squamous, tunica interna simple squamous, whereas the which is named to be the endothelium. These simple squamous endothelial cells are folded to form valves in the case of the veins. That's the reason why we do discuss the arteries are non-valvular, whereas here these are the valvular. Next, the other differences if we see, arteries are with the thick walls, valves are with the thin walls. Arteries carry the O2 blood except the pulmonary artery, whereas all veins carry the deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary veins. All arteries carry the O2 blood except the pulmonary artery. All veins carry the deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary veins. The number of the pulmonary veins are 4 from each lung. The 2 pulmonary veins open into the left atrium, which carry the oxygenated blood. Lumen is narrow in the case of the arteries. That's the reason why the blood with more jerks and with the jerks manner, what it flows wavy and jerk, whereas the lumen is wide in the case of the veins, so continuous flow. Basically, the pressure is with more in the case of the arteries, and that's the reason why blood pressure is detected by the sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer what detect the blood pressure, which is attached to the brachial artery, where the blood pressure is detected. Next, the arteries are deeply seated. They are present in the inner parts, whereas the veins are superficially placed. And the arteries are with the 2 elastic lamina, whereas the veins is with the 1 elastic lamina. The epithelial cells of the veins are folded to form the valves. Hence the veins are valvular, whereas the arteries are non-valvular. Generally, the blood vessels which are the progressively decrease in diameter is what we say is an artery, and that is arteries, arterioles and capillaries. So capillaries, when compared with the arteries and veins, they are part of it through which the closed type of circulation is seen. The largest artery, we say it is a dorsal aorta. Dorsal aorta is the largest blood vessel. Whereas in the case of the smallest is named to be the capillaries. Vasovassorum is said to be the smallest capillaries. This is the point to be noted. The capillaries are smaller. The smallest of the vessels is named to be the vasovassorum. So this is the complete description of the blood vessel under the circulatory system, the third chapter, where arteries and veins, their nature, their structure and their differences is what we see. Thank you.